Hi guys! Hey, so I'm here to show you a variety of different clusters that I made. I made these for a swap and I'm going to send them out today, but first I wanted to be sure and show you guys so you can see what I've been working on. So I'll show you the tiniest ones first. These I did kind of in the style of Corey Dahman. I really love her style of clusters, and I'm always trying to emulate it. I think hers always look good, and I think of her as the queen of clusters because hers always look fabulous, and she just has a certain way of doing them. They look really neat, I think. And I love tiny things. That's probably another reason I like hers because, yeah, she does lots of tiny ones. So this one I did kind of in the style of one that I have of hers. Just grab it quickly. I had this wonderful little journal that I bought from her, and she personalizes all the journals that she makes. They're so fabulous. So it's got my initials on it. Isn't that nice? And a book charm because she knew that I love to read. And like I was asking her for recommendations of kids' books because I know she teaches kids reading. So anyway, this is what I was imitating is this little cluster. And so mine's just a smidge smaller, but it's about the same size. And you start with just a piece of coffee dyed paper, which um, I have to admit, this is not really coffee dyed paper. It comes from Amazon like this to look coffee dyed. So I will put a link in the description box so you can see that in case you're interested in getting those. Anyway, so there's that piece of paper and then a piece of just plain tracing paper on top of it. And between, I have put some postage stamps. I glued them down. There's 4 of them in there. And then I sewed the piece of tracing paper on around 3 sides. I almost did it 4 sides and then I thought, why not leave it as a pocket? That'll be fun. So I did that, and then I used a few little stamps, some numbers, a cancellation stamp, and then a little city cancellation stamp. And no, actually there's a 4th one on there. It's kind of hard to see, but if you look just under the city stamp, it says art, and then it has like a number, some random number. So it's officially art because it says so. Okay, and then on top of that, I've just got a little piece of fabric here, a piece of lace, and that's something that Corey always does is put little pieces of lace on her clusters, and then another postage stamp. That is actually, you could use this as a tuck if you wanted, because I only glued it on the edge. So yeah, I think there's a lot going on for this little piece. I like it. Okay, the next one is more of a typical Corey Dahman cluster because she uses a lot of her offcuts to make clusters. And so that's kind of what I did. I used a piece of shorthand text, and then I've got a piece of German. It's like old High German, this really pretty scrolly text. And then we have a piece of dot matrix printer paper edging with the little holes. I have like a whole box of this stuff. So I'm never going to run out. So I'll always have that to use. And then on this side, I have a piece of music paper offcut, and it's been splattered with some orange paint. So then after I got those 4 pieces glued together, those long vertical pieces, then I glued a stamp and a little flower applique and a piece of tatting. Tatty lace or tatting lace. I don't know. It's tatting, which is another skill I want to learn how to do, how to make that, because I think it's so cute and tiny. And I'm all about the tiny. Okay, so then I just added 3 little dots of dimensional paint and it was done. So that was a pretty fast one. Next, let's look at these two. These are from a full 8.5 by 11 sheet of this green paper, which I should have used that side. You can see the pattern better, but whatever. It's coffee dyed and green food coloring, I think. So what you do when you do it this way, and I've seen a few people do it this way, I think Rachel and Gail and Sue at Paper Inspirations, whose swap this is, they all have done clusters this way, where they start with the 8.5 by 11 sheet, and then they kind of divide it into about 12 areas for, you know, one cluster on each area, and then just start building up papers in each area. So I did that. I made them all similar to make it easier on myself. So I started with the same papers. Like I've got this graph paper on both of them. It's avocado dyed, so it's kind of pinkish orange. And then next to that is a piece of tracing paper that was also avocado dyed. Then we've got a piece of text from a French English translation dictionary book. And then on top of that, on each one, is a piece of tracing paper that has been stamped with one of my tiny-ish stamps. So this one's a little quail, and this one is a bunny wearing a top hat and tails. And so at that point, with those papers on, they were just glued down with a little bit of glue. So there's, you know, it's kind of loose on the edges. But they're glued down just enough so that I can get them to the sewing machine, and then I sewed them. So if you look at the back, you can see I used some colorful thread and went around a couple of times. So there was, I think, 2 lines of stitching on every cluster on the page. So then after sewing down the papers, then I added this little piece of cross stitch fabric, which I have like a 5-foot tall roll of that will last me many lifetimes. That I got it for free, so it didn't cost me anything. So I'm cutting little pieces off of it, and I just used it on here to add buttons. And I sewed from the top so that I finished on the top and then tied the ends into a little bow. And I used different colored thread on each one. And then on the opposite corner we have a little applique flower, and I had a couple different kinds of those to work with. Okay, and then I think I started painting. So I got out my watercolors and I did some little swatches. Just picked a few colors that I thought would go with the green. And I really like color, so I like to add lots of different colors. And hopefully my swap partner likes color as well. And then I also added a stem on the flowers, on the little flower applique. I painted on a stem with leaves. Let's see, then I stamped these little dots, these little red dots, are actually some offcut carving material from carving stamps. So I just carved these little offcuts with tiny little dots, and they make some nice random dot patterns. So I used those. And then I think the very last thing I did on these was some dimensional paint. So I have 3 different colors of this stuff. It's the pinky purple, the gold, and then the green, which I put on the button on this one. And I think over here, yeah, some dots next to the flower. So those are very busy, but I love them. I love how colorful they are. I think they turned out wonderful. These were the ones I was originally going to film, but then they took me hours, so I'm glad I didn't try to do that. It's much easier to just tell you what I did. Okay, then let's move on to these. Let's see, just some more vertical ones. I was still going for emulating Corey's clusters because she uses lots of offcuts. So that's what I did here. I did start with a big piece and use that as a base. That's the fake coffee dyed paper. Then I put some strips down. This is scrapbook paper, cardstock weight, and then we've got a couple of book page offcuts. Then some more of that dot matrix printer paper with the holes, and that was actually from a piece that I painted. I think I spray painted it. And then we have a piece of offcut from a music paper. And then I stamped it again with the little dots, the random dots, except I used blue ink. And then I have this die cut that I did some watercolor painting on. And then we have, last but not least, the little brads on the top to finish it off. So that's that one. These two are similar in that I used another piece, a long piece of the cross stitch fabric on both of them. Let's just do one at a time. So this one, I've got that same scrapbook paper. Well, they both have that scrapbook paper. And then, yeah, it's just these 2 pieces of paper. This one is straw paper from Rachel at Roxy Creations. And so those 3 strips together. Then on this one I have half of a frame stamp that I just recently got at the thrift store for like $1. I love finding rubber stamps at the thrift store. They're always pretty cheap. And then I've got these just little colorful confetti type things. I don't know what they're called, but they look colorful. And then on top I have another die cut that I watercolor painted. Oh, and I also found out that the cross stitch fabric will take paint. So I used the watercolor paint on the fabric itself and made it a nice blue color. So that was fun. And on this one we've got, it looks like 2 pieces on the back, but then on the front we have 2 more. So a total of 4 pieces of paper the long way, and these I made all the same height, which I don't know. I think I like it better when they're different heights. It makes it look a little more organic. But this is okay. I also have a piece of paper from a Korean novel that I just picked up at the thrift store. More of the random dots stamped on. Another frame stamp that I found at the same time as the other one. Some fun beads along with the X's on the cross stitch fabric. A little piece of ribbon that's in a knot, and I had cut off these ends, I think from a bag, a paper bag that was like a gift bag, and I wanted to use the bag, like cut it up into pieces to use for collage. And it had these ribbon handles on, and I couldn't undo the knots, so I just cut the ends off. And then I thought, well, heck, why not use those? So I sewed that on. And then some dimensional paint, some of the gold dimensional paint. And I think that's it for that one. Yeah. Okay, and then last but not least, I started with one of my mushrooms that I drew recently. If you follow my Instagram, you will have seen these recently on there. I made a whole bunch of them. What I did was I drew them in a book, in an old book that I wasn't going to use. So I just drew them right onto the text, and then they have a nice built-in background. That's kind of interesting. So I drew the mushroom, then I used watercolor pencils. I think I used um, a combination of the fancy Inktense Derwent pencils and just some other watercolor pencils that I had. And then I used some triple thick on the mushroom top to give it some dimension and shininess. So that's the mushroom. The background is again some strips of paper. It starts with this text block from an old 50s teen novel that I'm saving the cover for to make a journal cover out of. And then we've got a block of the Korean text and some more of the splattered music paper offcut. And then I used a little piece of coffee dyed lace that I dyed myself. Another piece of dot matrix printer offcut, or not offcut, edging with the holes. And then just some dimensional paint. I used the green to make grass and the gold to make some little swirlies just for fun. And then the last thing was this piece of washi tape that I thought reminded me of mushrooms. The red with the white polka dots just made me think of mushrooms. So I thought it was a good combination to go with that. So that is it. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, that's about right. So we could send like 6 to 12, between 6 and 12. It was up to you how many you wanted to make. And I do have the rest of the page full of these that I didn't want to send her all the same, my swap partner, all the same kind of clusters. So I'm keeping the rest of those to use in other projects. So anyway, this swap is again like the AT coin swap that I did a video of Happy Mail that I got my coins from my swap partner. This is another swap from that same group, Sue's Paper Inspirations Facebook group. If you're interested, we'll put a link to her channel, and then from there you can find her Facebook group if you want to participate in these swaps. So I had a lot of fun doing that, and we'll just see what's next. I'll see you guys in the next video. So thanks for hanging out with me. Let me know if you have any questions about these. I'm happy to answer questions. And thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you later. Bye.